My sister destroyed my life, while my parents always took her side. I left home at 18 with one suitcase and never looked back. 5 years later, my mom called crying, "Your sister needs you." When I found out why, I couldn't believe they had the nerve to ask. Hello everyone. Before we start, thank you so much for being part of our journey. Our next goal is to reach 200 subscribers by the end of this month. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe and help us achieve this milestone. Every subscription means the world to us. My name is Madison Carter. I'm 23 years old, and I left home on my 18th birthday with one suitcase, $212, and absolutely no intention of ever going back. Not because I hated my family, because my family had spent 18 years proving they didn't want me. 5 years later, my phone rang. The caller ID read, "Mom." I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken in over 4 years. When I finally picked up, she was crying so hard, I could barely understand her. "Madison, please, your sister needs you." I leaned back in my office chair. The words didn't make me angry. They made me laugh. Not because someone was suffering, because after everything my sister had done to destroy my life, the one person they believed could save her was me. I calmly asked, "What happened?" Mom sobbed, "I can't explain over the phone. You have to come home." "No, please, just this once." Against my better judgment, I agreed. 2 days later, I stood outside the house I'd promised myself I'd never see again. When I opened the front door, my older sister was sitting at the dining room table. A thick stack of legal documents sat in front of her. She looked up at me. For the first time in her life, she looked terrified. But before I tell you why, you need to understand exactly why I walked away at 18. Growing up, there were only 2 children in our house, my older sister Vanessa and me. Vanessa was 3 years older, beautiful, popular, confident. According to my parents, she could do no wrong. I learned that lesson early. When I was 8, someone colored all over the living room wall with permanent marker. Mom walked in. "Who did this?" Before I could answer, Vanessa pointed at me. Madison was drawing. I stared at her. "I wasn't." Dad looked disappointed. "Madison, we don't lie." I spent the afternoon scrubbing walls. Vanessa watched television. That became our family pattern. If money disappeared, it was my fault. If dishes broke, my fault. If Vanessa missed curfew, apparently I'd distracted her. The older we got, the worse it became. In high school, I studied constantly. Straight A's, honor society, part-time job at a bookstore. Vanessa preferred parties, shopping, skipping class. Whenever teachers called home, she always had an explanation, usually one involving me. One afternoon, Mom stormed into my bedroom. "Did you tell your sister's boyfriend she was cheating?" "What?" Vanessa burst into fake tears. "I trusted you." I looked around in complete confusion. I've never even met him. Dad interrupted. "Apologize." I refused. It didn't matter. I was grounded anyway. A week later, Vanessa admitted she'd been caught by one of her friends. Not me. Did my parents apologize? No. Mom simply said, "Well, everything worked out. Everything, except my trust." By 17, I'd stopped expecting fairness. I focused on one goal. College. I earned a partial scholarship, saved every paycheck, applied for grants. I was finally going to leave. Then, 3 weeks before graduation, everything collapsed. Someone hacked into the school's online grading system. Several students' records were changed. One of the accounts used was mine. The school immediately suspended me pending investigation. I couldn't understand it. I hadn't even logged into the system that week. Then, a teacher quietly pulled me aside. "There was security footage." "What?" "Someone used your laptop." "My laptop never leaves my room." That's when I knew. I rushed home. My bedroom door was open. Vanessa sat on my bed, using my computer. "What are you doing?" She slammed it shut. "Nothing." The investigation eventually uncovered everything. Vanessa had stolen my password weeks earlier. She'd changed grades for one of her friends, using my account. The police weren't involved, because everyone involved was still in high school. But the damage was done. My scholarship was temporarily frozen. Several universities delayed my admission. Months of uncertainty followed. When the truth finally came out, I expected my parents to be furious. Instead, Mom hugged Vanessa. She made a mistake. Dad looked at me. "You should have protected your password better." I stared at him. "You can't be serious." He shrugged. "Family protects family." I quietly answered, "I've been trying. No one has protected me." That night, I packed one suitcase, folded my clothes, collected my savings, left my house key on the kitchen table, and walked out. No dramatic speech, no screaming, no tears, just silence. The next 5 years became the happiest of my life. I worked during the day, finished college at night, eventually became a cybersecurity consultant. Ironically, I now helped companies investigate digital fraud. I rented my first apartment, bought my first car, built friendships that felt more like family than my real family ever had. The only person from home I occasionally heard from was my grandmother. She never pressured me to return. She simply called to ask, "Are you eating enough?" I loved those calls. Then, 5 years later, Mom called crying, "Your sister needs you." I almost said no. Instead, curiosity won. 2 days later, I parked outside my childhood home. Nothing had changed. Same porch, same flower beds, same front door. Only I had changed. I took one deep breath, opened the door. Mom rushed over and hugged me. I didn't hug back. Dad stood quietly near the kitchen. He looked older, much older. Neither smiled. Neither knew how to begin. Then, I looked toward the dining room. Vanessa sat alone at the table. In front of her were several thick folders, court documents, financial records, legal notices. She slowly raised her eyes. For the first time since I'd known her, she wasn't pretending to be confident. She whispered, "Madison, I need your help." I looked at the paperwork, then at her, then quietly asked, "What exactly did you do?" No one answered. Instead, Dad slowly slid one folder across the table toward me. The first page read, "Notice of Civil Fraud Proceedings." My stomach tightened. Then I noticed something even stranger. My own name appeared several times inside the documents. Sometimes, the people who spend years blaming you for their mistakes eventually make one mistake too big to hide. And as I opened the first page of those legal documents and saw my own name printed beside my sister's, I realized my family hadn't asked me to come home because they missed me. They'd asked because they believed I was the only person who could save her from the consequences she had finally created herself. I slowly opened the folder. My name appeared on nearly every page. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What is this?" No one answered. I looked at the first document, then the second, then the third. Finally, everything made sense. Vanessa hadn't stopped using my identity after high school. She'd simply become better at hiding it. 5 years earlier, she had stolen my school password. 3 years earlier, she'd opened 2 credit cards using my personal information. A year after that, she forged my electronic signature on a small business loan application. Every lie had grown bigger, until there were no more lies left to tell. I slowly looked up. "You've been pretending to be me." Vanessa burst into tears. "I was going to fix everything." I stared at her. When someone else paid your debts." She couldn't answer. Dad quietly spoke. "The police gave her a chance to cooperate." Mom immediately added, "They said if you explain everything, maybe they'll show mercy." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I laughed, not because it was funny, because somehow, even now, they expected me to rescue her. I calmly closed the folder. "No." Mom looked horrified. "No, I'm not lying to investigators." Dad frowned. "She's your sister." I looked directly at him. "And I was your daughter." Silence, absolute silence. I continued, "When she ruined my scholarship. Or you defended her. When she stole my future. You blamed me. When I walked away, none of you came after me. So don't ask me to destroy my integrity, because she finally got caught." Vanessa stood up. "Madison, I know I don't deserve your help." "You're right, I don't." She wiped away her tears. "But I really am sorry." I looked at her carefully. "For which part? The identity theft? The fraud? The lies? Or getting caught?" She lowered her head. "I deserve that." "Yes, you do." Dad suddenly raised his voice. "Enough. We're trying to keep this family together." I calmly answered, "No. You're trying to avoid consequences." Mom began crying again. "We'll lose everything." I quietly replied, "I already did. My scholarship, my reputation, my home, my family. You watched it happen." No one argued, because they couldn't. Just then, there was another knock at the front door. Dad looked confused. "Were you expecting someone?" "No." I opened the door. Standing outside was my grandmother. She smiled when she saw me. "There you are." She walked inside carrying a small box, then looked directly at everyone around the table. I figured this conversation needed someone willing to tell the truth. She placed the box in front of me. Inside were dozens of letters. Every birthday card, every graduation card, every Christmas letter I'd supposedly never answered. I looked at Grandma. "What are these?" "I mailed every one of them." Mom slowly closed her eyes. Grandma looked at her. "Tell her." Mom whispered, "I never sent them." I stared at her. "What?" "Your grandmother wrote to you every month." I hid the letters. My hands started shaking. "Why?" She covered her face. I thought that if enough time passed, you'd eventually come home. Tears filled my eyes. Grandma quietly said, I kept copies. I wanted you to know. I never stopped choosing you. I couldn't speak. 5 years, I'd believed Grandma simply stopped writing. She never had. Mom had hidden every letter. Dad quietly whispered, I didn't know. Grandma looked at him sharply. You never asked. The room became silent again. Vanessa slowly pushed the fraud documents away. I'll cooperate. Everyone looked at her. She continued, I'm done blaming everyone else. I did this. I'll tell investigators everything. Mom immediately protested. No, you'll go to prison. Vanessa looked at her sadly. I should have learned consequences when I was 16. You never let me. Those words hit the room harder than anything else that day. Because they were true. Dad slowly sat down. For the first time in my life, he looked defeated. Not because his youngest daughter refused to help. Because he finally understood what years of favoritism had created. Before leaving, I looked at Vanessa one last time. I hope you tell the truth. She nodded. I will. And Madison, I'm sorry for every year I stole from you. I quietly answered, you can't give me those years back. I know, but maybe I can stop stealing anymore. I nodded once, then walked toward the front door. Grandma walked beside me. Outside, she hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you. I almost felt guilty. She smiled gently. Healthy people feel guilty for setting boundaries. That doesn't mean the boundaries are wrong. I smiled through tears. I missed you. She laughed softly. I never stopped loving you. Epilogue. 18 months later, Vanessa accepted responsibility for every fraudulent account and every forged document. She cooperated fully with the investigation. Because she had no prior criminal record and repaid much of the financial damage, she received probation, financial penalties, and was ordered to make restitution rather than serve prison time. She later wrote me a handwritten apology, not asking for forgiveness, simply acknowledging every lie she'd told. I appreciated the honesty. Whether forgiveness comes, only time can decide. Mom and Dad eventually apologized too. Not once, many times. They admitted they had spent years protecting the wrong person. Trust didn't return overnight, but accountability finally did. Grandma and I became closer than ever. Every Sunday, we have lunch together. She still writes me letters. The difference now is that I receive every single one. My thoughts. Looking back, the greatest thing I recovered wasn't my credit. It wasn't my career. It wasn't even my reputation. It was my voice. For years, I believed staying quiet made me the bigger person. It didn't. It simply made it easier for someone else to keep hurting me. Real love doesn't ask you to lie, sacrifice your integrity, or carry another person's consequences. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do for your family isn't rescuing them. It's letting them finally face the truth on their own.